Hopper.
Here.
Ms. Matt Franklin.
Here.
Mr. Reed. Mr. Schindler.
Here.
Mr. Seltzer.
Here.
Mr. Spector.
Here.
Mr. Todd.
Again, good evening. My name is Jeff Todd. I'm the President of the Board of Education. Welcome. And for those of you who will watch this later, as we are recording it, this is a meeting to interview 3 search firms that we have identified as the top respondents in our request for proposal for a search firm to help us with the selection process or the entire process of hiring a new superintendent. So that'll take place over the next number of months. But tonight we're here to interview 3 search firms. We will reconvene in a week and we will vote on which firm we have selected. I will just let you know and let everyone else know the board has worked together to come up with a list of questions that we feel are appropriate for this interview. We'll ask the same questions of each firm. We'll have the same amount of time for each firm. So each firm will get 10 to 15 minutes to provide an opening presentation to us, and then we'll run down a list of questions.
Motion.
That's a great idea, because I don't have an agenda.
Yeah.
We discussed it in email, but I'll instruct you as we go. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda for scheduled for today, August 20th, 2024?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper.
Yes.
Ms. Matt Franklin.
Yes.
Mr. Schindler.
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer. Mr. Spector.
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. So at this time, representatives of PWP, you are free to join us, either sitting here at the table or.
We'll come and sit. We like to have a conversation, so. Thank you very much for inviting us here this evening. We have a presentation for you that is it's very similar to the proposal we set ahead of time, but much more condensed so that we can walk you through it in the 15 minutes or so that you have allotted. We are BWP and Associates. We will introduce ourselves and then get into the presentation. And I will try to work.
So yes, you each should have BWP folder that has a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in it as well.
So if you want to take that out and then turn to page 2, we will begin by introducing ourselves. And since this is Deborah Hill, and since she is listed first, you can go first.
That may be popular.
I think it might be.
I'm Dr. Deborah Hill, and I'm the managing director of BWP and Associates. I've been with BWP and Associates, I think this is my 17th year, and I've been managing director for the last 10 years. I'm supposed to be retired as school superintendent. My children tell me that it's fake retirement. I didn't really mean it. I just wanted to have a party in terms of retiring from the superintendent's position. I have been the superintendent of a small school district in Illinois, right next to Chicago. I'm Chicago born and bred. I lived in place else. For Bears, for Cubs, all of my teams. I like the Cards too, but
I'll tell you about that.
but she's good. In any event, I graduated from Northwestern University and live in Evanston and have not left Evanston since I went to university. Served as a classroom teacher, curriculum coordinator, assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, interim superintendent, acting superintendent, and then superintendent of schools for 7 years in Glenview, Northern Illinois. University professor, something else I retired from supposedly. Past president of ASCD, which is the largest professional organization outside of the teachers union. Right now we have about 120,000 Love doing superintendent searches because having done that international travel, I believe that we can do better by our kids. And that better comes from the leadership. And so, again, searching for the perfect fit, the good match between the school district and individuals that have something to offer. But the bottom line for me is it's about the kids. It's about what we can do to better serve our students. And so I love looking at your mission statement, prominent, so that people will know what you're about in terms of being about the kids. Active in a number of regional and national professional organizations still, even I'm retired, but continue to do this work. Typically, I do maybe 2 or 3 searches a year. I spend a lot of time directing the other searches in the company.
Thank you, Dr. Rowland. Yes, I'm Dr. Ann Rowland, and like Deb, I'm a retired school superintendent. My career was a little similar as well. I started out as a teacher. We think that's important, that we've all been teachers, because that to us is really what is going on in the school district every day is the teaching, and our job is to support them and to be able to guide them and help them do the job that they do better than we do nowadays. After that, I was a counselor, a principal, an assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and then a superintendent. So just a rather linear career doing all the steps and phases of the Illinois school districts. After retirement, I joined DWP and Associates, and I'm a director there. We have 10 directors, and Deb and I are 2 of the directors. I have been actively engaged in searches since my retirement, and I have done across the country, mostly in the Midwest and the East Coast, over 100 searches for educational leaders. And I'd like to kind of echo what Deb said about why we do this work. We think that kids are deserving of good leadership. We think we can find them good leadership. We've got a lot of experience in doing that in all kinds of districts. And we feel like that's kind of our way of continuing in the profession that we have loved and has been good to us, in a way that we kind of pay back and we continue to be involved post-retirement, since, like Deb, I don't feel that I have retired either. I live in the Chicago suburbs, in a suburb kind of similar to this area, I would guess. But unlike them, I am not a Cubs fan at all. I was a born and bred St. Louis Cardinals fan, and I even got to attend with my 3 grandsons Game 7 of the last time we won the World Series, and I don't think we're headed there this year. The season's not over yet. So anyway, I'm always happy to be in St. Louis because I feel like I have some roots here. So we're glad to be here this evening. The other consultant we have listed is Javier Botana. He is a consultant that we would include to work with us if isn't here this evening. So if you would turn then, we'll
I
talk.
want to say a couple of words about
Javier,
Javier.
sure,
Javier
please.
and I worked together for a number of years in the Chicagoland area, and then he worked in Gary, Indiana as a superintendent. I recruited him for Portland, Maine as a superintendent. And since he retired a year ago, he has been working with PSCP and is really well respected in the Latino community.
The team we've put together for you is a team that have worked together before. So we know each other, we think we work well together, and we are an asset with each other as far as the skills that we bring. Deb and I have worked together for a long time, and we enjoy working together. Seem to work pretty well with each other. So the questions we plan to answer tonight are listed on page 3. Who we are, we'll get to that in just a minute. The consultants, which we've already introduced you to consultants. The process, which we will get to in our presentation. The recruitment, which is key to finding a good candidate to move you forward. This is an exciting time in your district to be able to turn a page, to turn it and look in a different direction maybe, or stay in the same direction with a new person that can continue on the good direction that you're on. We'll look at a calendar, let you know how long we will do, how long it will take us to do different phases of the search. We'll of course talk about the costs and our assurances, and then finish up with why you should hire little bit of information about us. We are a national search firm. We trace our roots back to the 1970s. So one of our firms that we are a firm that was put together with three small firms. One of the original firms we think is the oldest search firm in the country. So we've been at this business at BWP for quite some time. We've conducted over 600 searches. We have 10 directors, like I said, of which Deb and I are two. We have 40 associates nationally. We have a record of success that we're very proud of. 99% of our placements complete their first contract. Some districts give different lengths of contracts between 2 and 5 years. So we look at the contract the district has issued and then the success of our placements in those contracts. 95% are offered a second contract. No one has been dismissed from offices, and we do a lot of surveying of people we work with, which is you, the boards of education. And based on some of the surveying we've done, we have a 95% client satisfaction rate, which again, we're so proud of. Deb's going to take over the next phases.
Yes, slide 5 talks about the various phases of the search process. And one of the things that I think sets us apart from other search firms is I call us the little boutique search firm because we customize the search to what you need. We have a template of activities, but we gear those to what you're looking for and what you need. So that really comes into play in terms of communicating with the board and setting that information together with agreement and then sharing that with the community so that everybody knows who's on first, what the timeline looks like, what the expectations are, what are some of the positives, what are some of the negatives, engaging the community. All of those components really are part of customizing. The type of search. There are typically 3 different types of searches. And so we help you talk through or think through what search will be best for you. Whether it will be a totally confidential search in which all of the information stays inside in terms of what your applicant pool looks like, your candidates, et cetera. What we call a kind of a hybrid, which does a little of that, but also is expansive in terms of community inclusion to some degree. And then a totally open search where everybody knows everything about everything. And what we do is talk through what your community looks like and how they would react to those various types of searches. We typically recommend a hybrid because when you do a hybrid search, some of the characteristics and things related to the candidates remains confidential. You feel that you get a larger pool of candidates when they're coming in and their name is not going to be blasted all over the country when they haven't even determined whether they're going to apply for this position or whether they're even being considered. But that becomes the one confidential piece that we maintain and that we stick to, and we think that generates a really large pool of applicants and candidates. But in then determining how to include the community from the standpoint of our learning about them and then being able to go out and look for candidates that match what they're looking for, what you're looking for, that becomes, again, a part of that hybrid system. So we'll talk about community involvement and marketing, how we're going to go out and solicit for candidates for your district. One of the things in reading about who you are that I found that's going to be a challenge is that it's easier to go out and find people who have these skill sets who can come in and take a district that's really struggling and having a hard time and move them up. It's a little bit more challenging to have a district that's already kind of up here and you want to move them yet to the next level. And we think that Parkway is one of those districts where you guys have some good things going, your test scores look good, you know, your professional development plan, all of those things would be appealing to a number of candidates. But you've got, you know, in order to ratchet it up, you're going to have someone that comes in with some additional skills that someone who has to come in and start with districts that are kind of down here may or may not have. So I think that would be a challenge in terms of your pool. Communication, transparency, big components of what we need to do in terms of we take a look at, we provide you with information about what compensation looks like in your area, in your region, so that you'll be providing a compensation package that will be attractive, and that will be measurable, and that will be comparable to what's happening in the St. Louis area. Leadership. We create a leadership profile by talking and listening, talking to board members, interviewing you one-on-one individually to think about 4 questions. What are the strengths of the district? What are areas of concern that someone may need to come in and address? What are skill sets and characteristics that that person will need to have in order to be successful? And then the 4th is, what other things might not be responded to in those initial 3 questions? For example, is having a doctorate a requirement? Does the person need to have had teaching experience? So looking at some of those other variables, bless you, that might influence and be influenced by the candidates. Focus groups with the community. We want to talk to everybody. Face-to-face, online, an opportunity, but they're all going to be responding to those same 4 questions. And so when you get that kind of information, it allows you to have both qualitative and quantitative data. We include a district-wide survey that everyone is invited to participate in, a short survey, which asks those same 4 questions. And so we create a leadership profile based on what we hear, based on what we see, based on what is found in those instruments that we utilize in order to gather that data. We use that leadership profile as a blueprint. Now we're looking for people who have great communication skills or who are techno genies. You know, whatever that comes out of that conversation really guides us in terms of how to both apply, both look at the applicants who come in, and to make a determination of who we'd like to recommend to you. This open survey is for students, parents, community members. The forums, we create forums based on who you think we should talk to in terms of leadership, as well as an open community forum, so those people who want to be heard as well as to complete the survey will also have an opportunity to look and speak with us.
I think this is kind of a strength for us. We've done a lot of focus groups with a variety of people based on what boards want. The boards want different things based on community organizations, the governance in your community, and I think that for BWP and for Dev-I, this is one thing that I would say really is strength for us.
And we don't have,
I've
just checking.
Maybe we're answering some of the questions as we go.
Well, actually, I was gonna let you know we're right about at the 15-minute mark.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just
So
gonna check.
I know from looking at the list of 8 questions that you plan to answer tonight, some of them mirror the questions that we have prepared. So if you want to just wrap up your presentation.
We will do that.
and I guarantee you we're going to get to some of those questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent.
Thanks for the warning.
Phase 3, recruitment. Again, we'll be talking about that. I'm sure you're gonna have some questions about our contacts and our associations, but a lot of it is through professional organizations. The candidate assessment, again, we have that leadership profile that we have developed based on the information you've given us, and then we utilize that to screen the applicants. What we intend to do is provide you with a slate of 4 to 6 of what we believe are the top candidates who meet that leadership profile at least an 80% level. And then help you do some board training so that we can help you actually interview and review those applicants and candidates and come up with the top 2 or 3. And then once you get to that point and you determine who your top candidate is, then we will help you in terms of any information you want to have with regards to contract preparation, public announcements, all of those kinds of after the event transition kinds of activities.
The next page gives you a sample timeline, and as you can see, starting in September and ending in November or December. So that's a timeline we will work on with you, fine tune. And the next page, fees. I'm sure you're very interested in that one. These are the fees that we propose. Consultant fee, $23.5. We have some, an online survey, some administrative expenses, travel would depend on how many times that would ask us to be in person. We do we have a third party that we work with for special internet checks as needed. And, again, some of those are up to you, but we would guarantee not to go over that 36 month. We would put that in the clause, understand.
And finally, what makes us special? We're on call
All the time.
24/7. I can't tell you some of the places where I've taken board calls, standing in line at an amusement park to respond to some questions. Regular updates to the board and to the community, again, that communication and transparency. No surprise pricing, what you see is what you get. Would be your consultants, and so, again, we're not the front people who come and give you this presentation and somebody else does the work. We do a 2-year guarantee for your contract. We guarantee that if this marriage doesn't quite work, we come back and redo the search for cost, the cost being the support services and not a fee. And we mentor the new superintendent for that first year as a part of this contract.
That's complimentary from us to you.
Can you explain what triggers that guarantee?
July 1st, if you start that contract, July 1st, when the person starts,
They'll finish.
they don't finish that first 2
2
years.
years. It's
and you
something would
decide
happen.
It didn't work.
And then,
Then we come in and we work with you to figure out, okay, so now where do we go from here? How do you want us to proceed? And we do that only for the cost of support.
we don't leave you high
And
and
we
dry.
don't have to do that very often. Very rarely. So slide 13 gives you our assurances. Probably the biggest piece for us is our impressive success rate. We find out and we've worked in Missouri on a number of occasions, so we're pretty cognizant of what your state rules and regulations
We
are.
have a couple of Missouri consultants too that would help us as needed. That's us.
2 minutes.
BWP and Associates.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we will go through a number of questions, and as I said, there will be some that you may have already answered. We'll still go through them and ask them if you wish to expand on any of those you're welcome to, or if you feel you've already answered it fully, then we can move on to that.
And we wanted to finish up by 6?
We actually began with you after we opened the meeting at 5:05, so
Okay.
our target is 6:05.
Thank you.
I like that.
So I'll start off with the first question, and that is, how would you describe the Parkway School District to a superintendent?
Well, I think I sort of started talking about where you are, what we've read in terms of your Blue Ribbon schools and the awards, your structure, those kinds of things. These things are very appealing to superintendents. And again, you're up there in terms of your success rate relative to test scores, your programs, how you were doing your assessment, all of those factors that we were able to read about just in looking at your website will be appealing to a number of people. And you're friendly. You're friendly. And that counts for a lot. I think what happens with applicants and candidates is they'll look at a board meeting and they'll want to see how cohesive the board is. And I think that they will find that from what we've been able to ascertain, you guys are a good working board with some knowledge and with some commitment. So, and very professional. I mean, just we were laughing about the fact that you come dressed for board meeting. I mean, we've been with some board members that just came from the
It's just
from
the
field.
culture, and that's
But
fine too, but it's the culture.
This is very professional looking board. This will be impressive. It just seems like a little thing to you, but when you've done as many searches as we've done, we've seen some interesting things.
And
So
those
you've
are-
got a lot of positives
Yeah.
going for it.
And that is the number one question that Candace's going to ask us. How's the board? That relationship is the most important thing for the candidate.
The next question is, what strategies are you used to match a candidate's
qualifications, skills, and experience to the superintendent profile that is developed?
I'll start with that one, Deb, since you're the last one. The superintendent profile is the key there, and we will actually, for ourselves, when we begin to go through the candidates, we individually go through that profile that you've agreed upon. We don't develop that without your agreement, and rate each candidate based on that profile. Then we'll look at together and rate the candidates based on that profile, and then identify around 10 or 12 that we think, are getting to 60, 70% of that we will screen. And then, as Deb said, we look for about an 80% match to that. And those would be the candidates then, based on their match, that we would come and talk to you about. We don't leave it there. We also, before we come and talk to you, we could see on paper and through our interview that they feel like a match. But we also do extensive background checking and reference checking, media searches, to make sure that what we see is what others have seen as well. And we do use their reference list, but we also always try to find somebody we know who knows somebody who knows, so that we're using all of our resources. And that's where the fact that Deb and I are so well networked, and we've worked on some researches across the country, we really can usually find somebody who has some familiarity with every candidate that we work with. And so we use those resources to be able to bring you back. Now, people that, 5 to 6, we think meet the profile at the 80%, and then we also use that profile to help you. So it's key. It is key to everything that we do once we have that developed and you approve it.
We don't just look at applicants, people who look at to see it online and apply for it. We also headhunt. We take this profile and we go out and we talk to people at conferences, people that we know that we network. We're looking for someone for this district that has these skill sets and characteristics. Who can you recommend? We also ask you, and we ask the community, are there people out there that you think might do a good job at this? And we invite them to apply. And so it really is a larger networking than just having people see an ad or hear about it. We really go out and headhunt them.
Sometimes people ask us about that, what's our percentages? And it's been my experience that about 60% of people we work with are people that we've actually recruited. And the others, we may have some idea who they are, but those are people who may have seen the advertising that you've done and have applied independently. But recruiting is a big part of the work that we do.
Okay, next question. Are you currently conducting a superintendent search for any other St. Louis area districts? And how are conflicts handled?
No.
No.
Let's start with the easy one. No. We've done some searches in Missouri. We were just last. I told Ann, I said, I don't think I've been here since we did Hazelwood, because we did Hazelwood together. It was a great search. It was highlighted for us in terms of
And the
searches.
good news about that one is that we did it how many years ago? 6 or 7? She's still there. So that's what we want to look for too. Those are successful searches, and people that means there was a good match for that board and for that community and that candidate, and that's been a good match. I think she's done really well.
So we're not engaged in any other searches at this point. However, having said that, if another search comes up, we may submit a proposal for that. But because we have such a broad range of both directors and associates, it may be that we're only serving in a small capacity in another one rather than leading one. Like I said, I don't do as many searches as some of the other consultants do because I'm busy running everybody else's stuff and making sure all of those things are in place. But we can monitor, and it's also about the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
It's the timing, and you're right in superintendent hunting season. And so from that perspective, you're kind of one of the first that we're looking at for this year. So you're ahead of the game. Typically about November, we start getting a real influx of requests for proposals. By then, your timetable is set. We know which direction you're going in. We've already created the ads. And so again, you're really ahead of the game
to the conflicts, we avoid putting boards against each other. So, we'd be unlikely to present a candidate to your board who another board was also looking at. That just kind of puts boards, so if there was a search in the area that we had other consultants doing, we would keep in close touch with them and make sure that those kind of situations were not.
What methods do you use to assess a candidate's fit for specific culture and needs of our school district?
Well, one of the things we want them to come to us by the time they get to us is to have looked at their letter of introduction that's a part of their packet, in which they have described how they believe their skill sets and expertise match what you've said that you want from the information that we've created for people to read. So we usually do an ad, there's usually a job description, and we look to see candidates who look there first. We don't have a pool of superintendents out there that we're trying to find jobs for. And we hope that people will take it upon themselves to look at what the district is looking for and match their skill sets rather than just looking for a job. And so those are some of the kind of precepts that we address. The second part to that is relative to that piece. When we do look at the profile and we look at the screening and look at the applicants, again, as Ann indicated, then we want to talk to some real people who have some experience with these people to say, is it really true what they say they've done, or direction? Give us some more information, some concrete data, some more information in order for us to work with that candidate. Not the same shoe does not fit every foot, and so even as you talk about conflicts with other districts, there could be the district right next door to you, and they're going to do a search, but they're going to be looking for something different. And so that's why this becomes a personalized, boutique kind of operation.
And most of the people we work with really are good people. They've had good careers. We'll get some people who don't understand what a superintendent does, but 95% of our applicants are really good career people. So finding the fit is the main thing that we want to do. We're not going to put down any of our candidates because they're going to be a fit for someplace else, and they've had a good career to get them to this position where you can even apply for a superintendent position. We really like to treat our candidates with the utmost respect for us as a firm and for you as a school as well, for that reputation.
And if we get to the point where we don't think that there's a candidate that matches what you need to have, we will come back to you and say, okay, we got to move to Plan B because we don't believe that the candidates that we're getting meet your needs in terms of what the leadership profile has said. So let's talk about what will be Plan B. How will we go about recruiting differently? What information do we need to add differently in order to attract the kind of candidate that you're looking for? So it really is a very precise, step-by-step method, and we're willing to take a step back if what we're doing is not working for us.
How do you verify the accuracy of the information provided by candidates, including educational and professional credentials, and what are the typical background checks?
The credentials, we ask them to submit. We actually get their college credentials, their certificates, and we look at them to see that they're valid and have the stamps and have the different things that let us know that they are valid credentials. So we have them submit them, and we will provide you with them as well. We will provide you with an electronic Dropbox that has all this. We do verify those. I'm sorry, there was a second part to the question.
Yes, second part, fine. What does the background check include? I assume you guys check transcripts.
We do the reference checking, we do media checks, we talk to people who aren't on the references, but we think can provide us with additional information. We try to talk to people who have worked with the people before. We just explore a lot of, we really kind of go, what I do, and Deb and I will divide the candidates up at that point, and each of us will become experts on 2 or 3 of the candidates. And I work on it until I think I've got everything I can. And in some people that's easier than it is with others. Sometimes it requires follow-up phone calls and even back to the candidate. Tell me what this newspaper article indicates or things like that. So for me, I work on a
also ask,
Yeah, we asked
when
them
we
personally.
interview, when we conduct our one-on-one interviews, we say, I say, is there anything, do you have any skeletons in your closet that we should be aware of, that we should be able to share with the board? And that gives them an opportunity to say yes or no. And we've already started to do some checking, so we may say, well, there was an article about X, Y, Z, you may want to tell us a little bit about that, because we don't want there to be any surprises. Some things we look at and say, oh, this is understandable, yes, the person is offering a good explanation, et cetera, and so we're going to present this candidate.
And then we'll tell you that.
Right.
Too. We'll say, when you do your reference, when you do your news, everybody's gonna, as soon as everybody has a name, they're gonna, we know that. So if there's anything that we found out, we'll tell you. And if there was an explanation provided by the candidate or someone else, we're gonna tell you the whole story. As Deb always says, good, bad, and ugly.
The good, bad, and ugly. And if we decide it's too ugly, then we won't present that candidate.
Not on my list, but I do want to hear about the skeletons.
What we've heard.
Oh, we've heard some.
We've heard some.
Well, we have, for sometimes you have to define what you mean when you say skeletons in the closet. The criminal background check component, what we recommend is we do the preliminary check. There are certain things that we are allowed to look for and check. There are other things that you have to get permission from the individual, and typically we recommend that the board does your regular criminal background check that you do for your employees normally. If you don't have a system, there's an outside agency that does that deep dive criminal, and you'll see in the cost proposal what that costs, what that typically costs. And we have a couple of agencies that we recommend, because we are not allowed to do that, a certain level of criminal background check, if we're not hiring an individual. So we give you all of that information, and again, if you don't have a system, we help you design a system in order to make sure that the candidate is what they're supposed to be.
Got the next question. So describe the process that you would recommend the Board of Education use to interview candidates.
We have a whole training.
We will train
We
you.
have a 2.5-hour training that we do with the board that we call interview protocols. And we walk you through what you can say, what you can ask, what you shouldn't say, what you shouldn't ask. And then we give you some sample questions to select from, or take questions that you have to include in terms of your interview. We structure it so that you recognize that, in fairness, as you told us, everybody's being asked the same thing, everybody's under the same time frame. All of those things are very, very important in the interview process. But we sit with you and we train you so that when we walk away, you will be able to conduct those interviews in a fair and equitable manner, and that it will produce the outcomes that you're looking for. We also talk about consensus building, because there's nothing more strident than having a board that can't come to an agreement on the candidates. So we talk about how do you reach consensus. We give you some strategies that you can choose to use if you don't already have a process in place. That all comes before, or as we're presenting you the slate of candidates, we conduct that particular workshop.
And since Deb and I both have a background in staff development, we make you practice. Make sure you're ready to go before we let you. And we will also give you sample rubrics to rate your candidates on, and those will be most likely based on your leadership profile that you approve. We'll give you 3 or 4 different ways you can rate the candidates as you interview them.
Not only interviews, but as you look at the application materials, because we don't give you any materials until we give you the slate and you determine that you're going to look at those people. And then we create a secure Dropbox in which you have access to all of the materials that we have. That assures the candidates in terms of confidentiality. That keeps you out of trouble in terms of confidentiality, but we help you in terms of that particular structure. Once you've eliminated, let's say we've given you 6 candidates, you've eliminated 3. Those 3 candidates, their materials they disappear from your files. You don't have access to them anymore. You only have access to the ones that you're working with. Then once you've decided on the final candidate, we help you, we create a hard copy prior to that, it's all electronic, and it's controlled electronically.
And you can see that we're very careful with these materials. They're highly confidential, and we want you to have total access to them in a confidential way. But just like each of you, when you're applying, if you're applying for a position, you expect your materials to be confidential. We take our candidates' confidentiality very seriously in making sure that we can guarantee and you can guarantee that we keep the materials confidential.
We actually ask you to consider a confidentiality agreement specifically related to the search. And so we have a little, that's a part of the training, that we have a little discussion about what that looks like and what that means, and give you concrete examples of what happens when you don't do those things or when you're in violation. We've got some concrete examples of what happens when school districts violate the confidentiality.
Names have gotten out.
Mhm.
People have lost jobs, people have put referendum and sacrifice referendum based on their name being out in other districts. So, we're careful with that. We feel like we need to be protective of all school districts.
And protective of you, so
You
you don't
as
get
well.
sued.
So the next question will be very familiar. You can pass or.
Don't watch my time.
I'm looking at my time.
Who will have primary responsibility for the search, or is she your base? Please describe your qualifications for being assigned to our search.
One of us will. We'll be the two. We'll share the lead. We'll be co-leaders, but one of us will we'll determine that. If we're hired, one of us will be the main communicator with a board representative.
The board representative. And
So we'll
then,
ask you to choose somebody, and then we will, depending on our schedules, identify one of us to be the main person who communicates with the board. So there's nothing, doesn't mean you can't talk to the other one, but it just means that's clean, and that keeps a good flow of information. People, like Jeff, if you would be the person they would choose, the board would choose, then they can have their information flow to you, and then you can have it flowed down. And she would share with us, and we could share back with the rest of you. That's kind of been a process that we've tried to use. As far as anything for the press, we would take your guidance on what kinds of interactions you would like to have us to have with the press. We're not opposed to doing that, but we would not do that without your permission to do that. We're in favor of letting your community know what you're doing. I noticed when I'm looking at, you've already got a portal set up on your website for the updates on the superintendent search, and that's great. And we'll provide you additional information. You can keep that updated. We believe in transparency. Community involvement that's going to help your new superintendent be successful.
but the other part to that is we will provide you with documents that can be shared with the community. The only documents that aren't shared with the community are the names of the candidates.
And that we put in the
And
confidential.
that comes in under the confidentiality component. But the timeline, the questions, all of those things, we believe the community should know and have that information. And so we suggest that you publicize it.
Yeah, we're happy to provide you with the screening questions we use, and you can put them right in that on your website. So that, and that gives your community knows then that we've listened to them, you've listened to them, and there's that match all the way through the process of everybody trying to come back to that community engagement piece, the profile, and match everything up. So it's a very, makes everybody understand that there is worth in participating in a survey and a focus group.
Next question. What if the Board of Education has not found the ideal candidate during the first round of the search? How often does this occur?
This rarely occurs. It does happen on occasion, and again, then we come back and between the board and the consultants determine what's the next step. How do you want to proceed from this? What things were missing? How do we shore this up? What does your new timeline look like? And walk through it, and again, share that with the community. I've only had it happen to me once in the last 16 years.
I think I've had it happen once to my memory. I'm sitting here trying to think about it. There could have been worse, but I remember specifically one time that we did that, and actually it was a late in the spring search, and we ended up the board ended up hiring an interim for the next fall, and we did the search in the fall in that situation, which made some sense, and worked out, even though it took a little longer than our original timeline had said. But we'll work that out with you. If we are hired to be your search firm, we are your search firm until,
Till you get a superintendent that's been there and it stays for 2 years.
yeah, exactly, exactly. We're here to even advise you and be in contact with you beyond the hiring of the superintendent during that first 2 years of our guarantee. We're always available, 24/7.
So you actually kind of touched on this. How do you handle confidential information and ensure the privacy of candidates in the search process?
Well, we talked a little bit about the Dropbox. Candidates do not apply to the district. They apply, we use a system called Frontline, and it's kind of a national system. And again, it includes an application, it includes letters of reference, it includes their data from employment and from school. It includes their letter of interest. So it is a composite of their professional profile, and in essence. We keep all of that information until it's determined that you're interested in communicating and talking with those people. And as I said, then once you finish with them, it's removed. And candidates really like that, knowing that their stuff is not gonna be out there until this particular time. It may be when you decide, again, determining whether you're gonna have a closed search, a hybrid search, or an open search, when that's gonna take place. Are you gonna share that information? We provide a one-pager, which is a description of the candidates that we're recommending for you to consider. Once you've made your decision, that one-pager can be published, so that then the community has some of the information that you have relative to their background, to be a press release. But we've really already prepared that for you, but it comes at a certain point, and you know ahead of time what that point is going to be.
The other piece to that is if you choose to keep the candidate's names confidential until you move down to maybe 1 or 2, and we can talk about that as we move forward, we will help you set up those interviews, because that is a little complicated too, because we've got to find some place that's private to hold them, and we have to make sure the candidates come in one door and out another door and different things like that. And we've done that quite a few times, so we'll advise you and set those up for you and stagger them in such a way that the candidates won't run into each other either. Because while I think candidates are confidential about each other's information, it's something that we can avoid.
All right. Kind of overlapping still, but please describe your typical recommendation for how superintendent candidates are to be interviewed, and maybe also how many interviews you usually do.
We recommend, well, we set up our interview schedule when we're looking at that initial screening of the 10 or 12 applicants, and we try to get them done in like 3 to 4 days, because then we determine who we're going to move forward. With the board, we recommend that you not do more than 2 interviews at a time, and that first round of interviews is anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. Again, we've helped you establish the questioning, just like you have these questions that you're asking us, and you've assigned people to do those questions. We hope you design that for those candidates. When you get to your semifinalists,
We do 2, yes, we encourage you to do 2 rounds.
2 or 3, depending
2 or
on the
3.
number, depending on whether we're giving you 4 to 6. If we give you 4 to 6 candidates and you're only doing 2 an evening or an afternoon or a day, then it's gonna take 3 days. The hardest part for all of this is the scheduling. It's getting all of you to have the same times available at the same days during this particular period of time. So that's one of the first things that we start off with, is what your calendar looks like, so that everybody can make room and have it, because it's critical that everybody's there for every interview.
Never mind, I thought, okay, never mind.
Somehow I keep getting
Was there, I'm sorry, was there another part to that question? That was what I was.
No, you covered it.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
I keep getting the real fascinating questions. This one's really just read page 11, but what specific costs in addition to your fee should the Board of Education anticipate, and what is the estimate of those costs, and will there be a cap? I can
Yeah.
probably answer that for you.
Yeah, that's page whatever.
Was, but,
Well, that's in the slide.
and you know, we gave you some, like, whatever, 500.
The max.
The range, we will strive to stay in the lower part of that. But we wanted to guarantee a number in as well. Sometimes things happen.
That's on the travel, I don't know, that's business class, we probably working on.
Yeah.
More like coach.
I was in row 16C today.
Amtrak company.
Yeah,
It's-
oh, don't tell her that, she'll want to take
I
the
want to
train.
take the
There's a
train.
megabus.
And I'm taking the megabus.
She is taking,
I'm taking the megabus.
I would prefer to fly or you drive, but
But I think the point in terms of the cost is that's the maximum, optimal. At the end of the search, I do kind of a cost analysis and match what we budgeted and said we were gonna spend with what we actually spent. And I've only had one time where we were slightly over budget, and then we absorb that cost. We will tell you
it's a
that
guarantee.
we guarantee, we're not gonna spend more than this. I think for your case, it's 36.5. And if it's over that, then we absorb that. So we're very good about trying to budget and stay within budget, relative to the additional consulting work, the advertising. Our fee is kind of set with the three of us and the 23.5, in terms of those fees. As we said, we don't fly first class. So we know we have this range to work with. So we will stay at the hotel by the airport, which is what we did before coming tonight. All of those kinds of things, because we've been school educators and superintendents, and we know what school budgets are like. And so we want to be very cognizant of maintaining a reasonable level relative to that piece. So we don't do extravagant. We do a lot of our own printing and sending out materials so that you don't get charged for that.
So what strengths or weaknesses can we anticipate when we contact your references?
I think the strength is, we told you we communicate 24/7. I think you'll find that. I think you'll find that we stay in touch with the boards that we work with. I think boards are satisfied with the candidate pools that we present for them and our training that we do. We're very open. Deb and I just finished up a search in East Chicago, Indiana, where we presented the community, the good, the bad, the ugly, for sure, and got a standing ovation. So I feel like we're very open and understanding that the public is important to be included and involved in the search.
The critical mass, if you talk about what comes back to us as dissatisfaction, typically comes from the community not having access to who the candidates are. They want to know, and they want some more input, and I start off upfront saying, it is the board's decision to hire the new superintendent. It is not the community's decision. If the community wants to vote on the new superintendent, they need to run for the school board. However, having said that, it's the community's responsibility to provide input to you. And so that, when I keep repeating that, because there are community members who think that they're supposed to have a vote, and they don't. And we're upfront with that. I try to say it kindly and politely. Some people don't believe that. So we get to the end, and the concern is, well, you said you had 40 candidates, and we don't know who they are, and we wanted to see their names and all of that. In our final report, we include a data analysis of what your applicants look like. You had, 15 applicants from the Midwest. You had 5 applicants from the East. You had 4 applicants. You had a certain number of applicants who were former superintendents, and some who were principals, and some who were the bus drivers. So we give you a statistical data analysis of the applicants, but we do not release the applicants' names. We do not want the community out there thinking that they should be doing our job and doing your job.
And we're doing that on your behalf as well, because one of the questions we're going to get is my candidacy confidential? Until the end, of course. People know there's some possibilities at the end. But you're going to have, in a district this size with this reputation, you're going to have people who are sitting in the seat right now who want to take a look at the district. And they won't be able to do that if the names are published. We
just won't. So, we wanna be able to provide you with the best possible candidate pool, and that's how it happens.
And the same thing is true, the second part to that is the press. Again, what information gets provided to them, which is published, and that's why I said we suggest that you take the leadership and the lead role in publishing the information that the community could have. And that means the documents that we give you, as opposed to just listening to where the press comes from.
So we want everybody to understand the process in detail. I have no questions about the process, just not the candidates.
And then some people don't like the process because they don't get a chance to pick, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to,
I can
we
see
have
that.
about 5 minutes left, so I will ask the final question, and that is there anything else that you would like to share with us from everything that you brought in the packet, everything you've heard from us? How would you like to summarize what we've come up with?
Well, I'm going to summarize by saying we don't, as the managing director, I kind of direct the request for proposals, and we don't respond to every request for proposal that we see. We respond to those that we think we can do a good job and we have something to offer. So that's the part one to that. The second thing is many of the search firms have similar kinds of activities and processes. And we really believe it boils down to the relationship between the board and the consultants. That's a trusting, giving, warm relationship that you're going to have a successful search. So we work very hard at being open and communicative, and as we said, sharing with you the good, the bad, the ugly, so that you don't have any surprises later. Because once we get the search, we have a vested interest in your success and in the success of the candidate that you ultimately select. And so we do whatever we can, we pull out whatever stops we can, whatever needs to be done in order to make sure that that marriage is going to be solid and it's going to be healthy. It's going to be about the kids.
Right.
So I'm circling back to that initial piece. It's because we're about our kids.
I think that's why, as we both said, that's why we continue to do this work and don't,
Because I'm retired.
and don't retire.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sean?
We're right on time. And if, we're both available for additional questions, if anything would come up, I think that, email and our phone numbers are available to you, and we'd be glad to take any additional questions that you have.
And if you don't select us, but if you don't select us, we still wish you well. We wish you good luck in terms of this, because this is a very important decision. I think it's one of the most important decisions that school boards make. And so while we would love to work with you, we're not going to be ugly and bitter if you work with someone else, as long as you're going to get quality for working with your kids, because they deserve it.
Thanks a lot.
Dr. Hall, Dr. Bevan,
You
Come on down.
join us.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Well-
Officially, just stuff some food down. Those long nights, I appreciate you all being here.
My name is Jeff Todd, I'm the president of the Board of Education. We want to welcome you to tonight. You're one of the firms that we selected to interview. And so we're looking forward to getting to know your firm, getting to know you. We have a list of questions, about a dozen questions. But we want you to obviously present to us your 10 or 15 minute presentation, share a little bit about your firm and about what you plan to do. And then if we have some questions that overlap, then you're welcome to use that time to expand on those answers, or we can just move right on to the next question. So, like I said, you'll have 10, 15 minutes to share with us whatever you'd like to.
Thank you so much. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm local here, been a longtime educator for quite a while, and I just have to say I've admired Parkway for years. From being a fellow superintendent with Dr. Marty for several years, and currently I am a professor at St. Louis University, and I am in the Educational Leadership Department, so I'm working with folks who want to become principals and superintendents. So to be very specific, I have a course, School Community Politics, and I always use Parkway. They're a wonderful example of what they do with communications. And so when I say I really admire the work that you all do. So it's been something for years. I've referred to Parkway as an exemplar in the area. So I am the managing director here at Ray & Associates. I've been there for 4 years, and I'm a long life educator for many years, and educational leadership is my passion, and that's what I do. Like I said, I was a regional superintendent, and now I have made my pivot to St. Louis University in educational leadership. And I'm proud to be a part of Ray & Associates doing this work with the superintendent search. So it's the whole life cycle. I'm preparing leaders, and I'm also making connections for school districts to find their next leader. So I am very happy to then have my colleague here introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Batenhorst, and I just retired after 40 years in the field of education. My last 7 years, I was superintendent in the Mount Vernon Community School District in eastern Iowa. In my educational life, I've been a teacher, a coach, adolescent mental health therapist, school counselor, principal, assistant principal, assistant superintendent, college professor. So I bring to you a variety of experiences that I think help me work with a lot of different groups. 23 of my years were spent in the St. Louis area. I was an assistant principal in the Kirkwood School District, principal in both Francis Allen Rockwood, assistant superintendent for 6 years in the school district of Clayton, and obviously in that time worked a lot with different people in Parkway, and we're not trying to just bombard you with plaudits for the district, but Parkway's always had great systems and great people. I'll throw out one example really quick. If you really, really like the work that Mike Boggess does, I taught him everything he knows.
Oh,
If you don't, I never met the man in my life.
I don't think we have to interview him.
it shows you how old you
I think one of the important things too, but just having joined Ray as a regional associate, is that I'm a Ray & Associates alum. So I've seen it from both sides. When I received my superintendent position in Iowa, it was through in-depth research and national connections that put me on the radar screen for my job, and I ended up being an outstanding fit for the district in Iowa, and we had a great 7-year run together before I retired. Then my successor was chosen with the use of the Ray & Associates people, and just really a seamless process in hiring someone I think is a great fit to take my place. So I've seen the system at work, and the things that we are going to talk to you about, I think really do work well in making sure that we get the best person for Parkway.
100%. And So for our next slide, I am introducing the entire team. So you see us in person, and then we have our vice president and president who will be serving you as well. So we do have a home office in Iowa. Both the president and the vice president are in Iowa. And Kathy, the top picture there, she does the administrative work. So you will always have someone who will answer the phone if there's any questions. And your contact person who does the administrative work, we have someone who immediately can serve you on that level. The other part of the team, as you see us here, is the president. She oversees all of these searches, but she will have contact with you as well. So I'm boots on the ground here in the region. Greg will also support me, and then the president is along with the team and also will have a part of the responsibility of the work that we will do to serve you. So I just want you to know all the individuals we're introducing to you are the team you will work with through the entire life cycle.
So if you look at your mission and vision as a school district, I love the alliteration, the capable, curious, caring, and confident. That's great. It's obvious through your mission and vision that you really want to have well-rounded students, well-rounded kids, and then it goes beyond just academic achievement. It goes into the social emotional realm and all the other things that are so important in serving kids in 2024 and beyond. Why this is important is this is your North Star. This is who you say Parkway is. So this is your North Star in choosing your next leader. It's our North Star in helping you choose that next leader. We think that this is going to be a very sought-after job by a lot of outstanding individuals. So it's our job to help you in the process of making sure that the person you choose is going to execute that mission and vision and really put in place a new strategic plan to move the district forward.
So who we are, this is just an outline of things that we're going to talk about in more detail. But first and foremost, we are the oldest firm that's out there. And we are able to be successful for over 40 years because of the work that we do and the process that we stand by. We have diverse associates. Our leadership is diverse. Part of the reason why I work at Ray & Associates is their commitment to diversity and inclusion, which I will elaborate on in just a moment. Now, because we have this illustrious career history in this work, we have associates that want to work for us that are outstanding associates that have deep and wide networks, which then is all connected, helps us when we're able to find the best candidates for you to review and for you to then consider for interviewing. So we're going to go into more detail about all these things, but this is a highlight of who we are and what we do and why we've been here for over 40 years. So this part here, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion through this process, first it starts with who makes up Ray & Associates. And again, educational equity has been a huge part of my career and my work, and it continues to be embedded in all the work that I do as a professor and a consultant. And so I wanted to be in a space where my voice is heard in terms of the view of the work and how to educate all kids to sit at the table and to be seriously considered. And at Ray & Associates, where we do that with our associates. So it starts there, having diverse conversation and thoughts and individuals sitting at the table when we talk about the best candidates for the schools that we are trying to serve and find the best fit. And then as a result of that understanding and that value that we have in the organization, we ensure that if this is a strong value, it's not all boards talk about this, but if there is a board and a family, school family that values diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are looking for candidates that go beyond just the catchphrases. We are looking for people who know how to lead this work, who know how to have these difficult conversations with the community, with the board. They have a history of this. We know how, and I personally know how to find that out with candidates. And we also know how to customize questions through the process to find that out. So that's why we use this as a slide, because we think it is very important when boards and school communities want this, they value this. This is how we show up in this work. Okay? So, board input. The thing that you will hear us say multiple times throughout our process here with you is this is your search. This is your community. This is the most important responsibility you have, is to find a superintendent. And you're following up Dr. Marty. He's a giant, right, in the region. He's been around quite a while. But you have us as your consultant to provide you with a framework and a process that we have great success for over the years to support you through this work. But your voice and your input is with this process all along. And I value, especially when I do this work, is very collaborative and very communicative throughout every step of the way. Because I don't want any of the board members to, one, have any surprises and not be able to be at Schnucks or at Topgolf, wherever you are, and someone says something to you, and you're like, I don't know. You can't have a conversation about the different stages of the process. I don't want that. So we work really hard to make sure you feel comfortable about every single stage of where we are with the process. And if you have any questions and you want to delve deeper, we are here for you for that. So there's major stages here, you can see on this slide. And the first part out the gate is your input on the timeline. In the bid, there is a mock-up, an example of a timeline that will get you started September 4th, as you all had stated. You wanted to start to December, where you would have somebody. And it indicates different meeting times, but it's just to give you a general idea of the pacing. But you give input on those dates, right? And then I would tell you, and Greg would tell you, okay, this is a time where this is going to be about a 3-hour meeting. Like, we give you a heads up on the time that you're going to be spending on this. Now, developing the profile candidate, the superintendent profile is really, it's more of a community and board input, but you have a hand on shaping it and refining it along the way, which we will talk about in just a moment. But casting a wide net and using community input is important, which is my favorite part of this process, is engaging with the community, and we'll talk more about that as well. And then also one-on-one interviews. So myself and Greg, we will sit and have a conversation with you, all the same questions, and then we will gather all that data, and we will have themes from there to see how much in line you all are, and then also that information is a part of the superintendent profile. And then when it comes to the compensation, we have support for you, because we do some comps with the area and then nationally, so you have a general idea. But of course, we encourage you, if you all are at that space with your CFO, to be a part of where you are with your band, your salary band, where you would like to compensate your new superintendent. But we do give you some starter information, that is the comps. But of course, a lot of boards, they already have a general idea, but we're here to provide you with some suggestions on what's going on across the country and the area and the state. Okay?
I'll just point out that we're about at the 15-minute mark.
Whoa!
So if you would like to wrap up
Yes,
as
absolutely.
expeditiously as you can, I guarantee you that some of our questions will probably
100%.
ask some of the information that you have
So just get, so yeah, I'll be real quick. So with your district, obviously Parkway is not Rockwood, it's not Kirkwood, it's not Webster, it's not Ladue, it's not Clayton. That district profile is all about getting a Parkway leader. We use an assessment tool of 31 qualities of exemplary leaders to help you get there, to make sure that we create a profile that is Parkway specific. We're doing what we've always done as lifelong administrators. We collaborate well with small and large groups. We work well with one-to-one with board members. We want to get diversified experiences, and we have diversified experiences and can work with diversified groups to get you where you need to go. We're going to survey your community. We're going to provide focus groups with either virtually or in person to make sure all voices in the room, your staff, your board, your students, your parents, your community. Recruitment-wise, we do have that wide reach across the country, and we do have strong local ties, both of us, to find those outstanding local leaders that might be very much in the mix here. And we very much have a passion for kids and for St. Louis kids. So we want to make sure that we give your district the best slate of candidates to choose from, because this is a big deal, especially after already being here for 14 years. So. Yeah, I just went. Yeah, just kind of touched on it. Since we're just up against our time, we can probably.
So did we run out of time?
Well, we're trying to keep each firm to.
Oh, I totally
within
respect,
that 10
I would
minutes.
stop
I
talking.
think we can pick up the rest in the
Okay,
Q&A.
yeah,
So.
as I said, there'll be a lot of things that we ask you that are already in your the plan to present.
Okay.
So I'll start with the first question. How would you describe the Parkway School District to a superintendent applicant?
Well, first and foremost, we would have the profile that's already developed that is created by the community, first and foremost. And also part of the process, if you all are interested when it comes to marketing, we will make a video for you, so we can provide that for you. And that is highly effective in what we do, and no one else is doing that right now, because people are very visual right now. So working with your communications department, we are happy to put that together for you. And I would say it is outside of what the community is saying and what we've heard from stakeholder groups and from the board. Our own personal experiences is one of the premier school districts in St. Louis County, by far. And it has for many years the academics, the extracurriculars. It's a lovely space, and that's it to live, because for folks coming out of state, you also want to be able to give them a visual of what the community looks like, because they'll be moving their family. So we want to share how lovely it is in this West County area, but St. Louis offers a lot for anyone who moves here. So that's part of what we do. There are many things that you can add on that we can share.
I mean, the numbers don't lie. You can look at academic achievement and all the other indicators that the state puts out in regards to exemplary school district. Parkway is consistently top 5, top 10 in all the different categories. I think it's more diverse than people might think and know, being a West County district. I mean, over 100 plus languages spoken, and the northeast part of the district is not the southwest part of the district, so I think it's important that candidates know that there is a deal of diversity, and in diversity there is strength. You look at programs like the Spark program and things like that have evolved over time that are just, I remember when I was a principal in Rockwood, we were just kind of doing some of the early stages of the community ed work as partners, Rockwood and Parkway together, and just, a lot of dynamic conversations going on between the two school districts. There might have been social competition between Rockwood and Parkway, I don't know.
Just a little.
It's an exemplary district and an exemplary part of the St. Louis area, and like I said, that's why I think it's going to be very much a sought after position. You have great people, and there's a lot of people I look at as your principals, assistant principals, people. I have one of your data people, Nathan Tyson, was one of my former teachers, and he's a great guy.
Tony Arnold.
Tony Arnold. So I'll give you just a quick aside. So Dr. Hall and I were talking over the weekend just about preparation for the search, and I said, okay, Karen, I said, I keep tabs on what's going on in the St. Louis area, but I have not lived there now for 7 years. I said, anything that I'm not seeing about Parkway that I should know? Just, is there any deep, dark secrets that are going on? And she paused, like, no, they're just firing on all cylinders. They have everything going well. I mean, even just look at the news article that talked about Dr. Marty's retirement and listing all the accomplishments from past bond issues to new programs to academic achievement and meeting the social emotional needs of students. This is an exemplary place to be.
Next question. What strategies are used to match a candidate's qualifications, skills, and experiences to the superintendent profile that is developed?
Yes. So what we do, and actually I can share here. So the first process is a paper screening. And when all of the candidates apply, it goes into our portal, and we get on average about 30 applicants, right? And based on the profile, we use what we are looking for, probably about 10 people, and I create a spreadsheet based on the profile, and then again, what the board is looking for. I am going through all of that information to make sure that it is represented in the application, in the resume, the cover letter, all of those things I consider to say, I've created a slate of candidates for you, which would be approximately 10 to 15. So from there, I will have a conversation, the team will have a conversation for an interview. And there's standard questions and 3 customized questions that reflect what you all are looking for in Parkway in this interview. And so when we present these 10 to 15 people, you will be able to hear about their responses, and then also we will ask them to complete this video. It's called a Spark interview, and they're 90-second responses, and they're customized Parkway questions that they will respond to. And it's really nice because you will see these. And so you will have a face and a name and how they respond to these questions. So when we sit down and you all want to decide who you would like to interview for the first round, you have a lot of homework before that meeting. You get to review those videos, and you get to review the resumes, the application, the cover letter, right? And so when we have this conversation, we are going to use something called a consensus matrix to help you determine who are the individuals you would like to meet virtually or in person for your first round. So we have boards who would like to know, okay, yes, the very thing, how did you determine who these individuals are? So again, I have a spreadsheet, I have things like that, I know what I'm looking for. And then also from there, I call people and I interview. But when boards still want to know who didn't make it to the slate, you have access to all of the applications. So if you want to say, well, I want to know, why didn't I heard, well, you have access to everything, and we can have conversation about that. So it's very transparent through that process to find out who made it to the rounds along the way. Yes.
Clarify something you said. When that stage of this occurs, you're bringing us 10 to 15, and then we're whittling it down?
Well, so we start with 30. So we're gonna just use numbers, approximate numbers. And then the slate that I present to you, yes, you will determine who you want to interview. Because what I'm presenting to you is what Ms. Hopper, sorry, that was two O's, apologize. Ms. Hopper, how do you determine how they're lined up to the profile? So this is what you're going to see, the ones that I found that I felt that were aligned to the profile.
For that 10 to 15 that comes up.
Correct.
And then you decide, after reviewing all of that paperwork and the videos, and then having a discussion with one another, you will determine if you want to interview 6. And so, as I was saying before, I want you to know that this whole process is very transparent. You also can see the ones that I did not bring, if you're interested. It's there for you. We have the links. Okay? Thank you for your clarifying question.
Just quick side on the video part. Having been on the other side when I did the video, I hated that.
Yeah, it's really,
And
it's not easy.
And I thought I did horribly on it. I have a face for radio, number one. But the board that chose me said that I had done a really good job in the video, and they said it really helped them try to put the person here.
Yeah.
As opposed to other districts. You know, can you in those 3 90-second responses, you'd be surprised how much information you can pick up and a feel you can get. Can you put that person here in Parkway? Do they fit your mission and vision? Do you see them executing your strategic plan? So it is a powerful tool that most other firms do not use, if any.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you currently conducting a superintendent search for any other St. Louis area districts, and how are conflicts handled?
Currently, no, we are not. And what we do, and we've talked about this, because we have been selected by a neighboring school district. It is the timeline and how we would run the whole search so there would not be overlap. And the overlap is when you have the posting out. So you have that 4 to 6 week time period. You want to make sure that they're not at the same time, because it is not our place to tell a candidate you can't apply for multiple positions. We can't do that because that happens. Candidates can do that. However, what our role, we wouldn't have the opening going on concurrently. So there wouldn't be that overlap.
And we've had conversations too about likely if there were 2 going on at the same time that we were fortunate enough to be in charge of, one person would not be the lead person on both.
Yeah.
So that one person, whoever the lead is, would be your contact, your person who then is just ancillary to the other search.
Correct.
While the other person takes lead on the other. So we have the bandwidth to do multiple districts. We have the associate pool to do that. We also, as was laid out earlier, minimally what you have is you have Karen, Molly, Kathy, and me, and the office staff that work with Molly and Kathy. So we have a robust team that's going to be able to, we can handle, just as we can handle multiple searches throughout the nation at one time, we can handle multiple area. Rain Associates was involved in several superintendent searches this last year in the central to eastern Iowa area, and they were able to do it pretty flawless. So they were just almost like what's happening here in St. Louis. There was boom, boom, boom. They always came at the same time. But we have the bandwidth and we have the team to be able to handle that.
Good question.
Just a clarifying question. I know you said originally, you're not currently, but you have signed up with a district or just haven't started a search, is that?
We did the same thing as you.
We've interviewed with
Okay.
another.
Just in case.
Thank you.
They haven't made a decision.
Yes. So we're free right now.
So who's the other one?
All right. What methods do you use to assess a candidate's fit for the specific culture and the needs of our school district?
So say that again. I want to make sure I heard the
What
first
methods do you use to assess a candidate's fit for the specific culture and the needs of our school district?
Do you want to start?
So yeah, I'll start with one thing. When we talk about the process and we talk about that initial interview that we would conduct with potential people we would bring to you. That phone interview allows us to get that first sense of, are they a fit for Parkway? This is where I think our experience in the St. Louis area comes in handy. We know the area, we know, I think we have a pretty strong sense of the district and what you're looking for. And we will have fleshed all that out with you in the initial meetings as we build the pool of candidates. So that's really number one. You know, we can ask questions, I think, about this job, spin-off questions to the set questions that we ask every candidate. We can ask spin-off questions that are specific to Parkway and the St. Louis area that I think allows us to get a sense of, yes, you would fit here, or no. Again, that's why I made the point about Parkway is not Rockwood, is not Webster, is not Kirkwood, et cetera, because we may have a strong sense of, yes, when I hear you and when I look at your paperwork, I can see you in this district, but I don't necessarily think you might be the best choice for District B. So that's kind of the start of the process, and then just using that assessment of the exemplary qualities of an exemplary leader, where Karen referred to earlier, coming up with the matrix and everything. That is all very much driven to determine who is going to be a fit for ones that we bring to you. And as you're looking through that 10 to 12 to 15 candidates to choose 5 or 6 interviews from, you're not sitting there saying, why did they bring this one to us? It should be pretty solid.
Right, and for me personally, what drives the best fit is based on what we're hearing from you all. Is based on our interviews and from the community. I love stakeholder groups, and I especially love meeting with the students, so you need to have a student group. They're wonderful. They're like the wisest ones of the entire community, but when we gather all of that qualitative data, we review that and we look for themes. And that information we share with you, and what we strongly encourage that you add to your profile. But outside of that is taking in all of that energy and passion and concerns and conversation from everyone. We now add that to our prior knowledge. So we don't lead with the prior knowledge, but we have prior knowledge. We have a schema. Like, there's a value there, but we're talking about Parkway today. Parkway, the people's voice today, with the board and with the community. So that is how we lead. We train our ear, and we are paying attention to what everyone is saying. And then we have the process that Greg described so beautifully, but we're learning and we're applying that. And then we are able, with our experience and skill, to ask the right questions to make sure it is a good fit. But it's about the people.
How do you verify the accuracy of the information provided by candidates, including educational and professional credentials, and what does a typical background check include?
So we have, it's 2-tier. So with candidate pool, when we go through the paper screening and when we provide you with a slate, that's our top tier. So we do a deep dive with their Google, Yahoo, what they have with their social media. We also interview, so we have conversations with them, and then we check their references. And we check references, people that they didn't recommend as references as well. We contact them. And for the individuals that you want to meet as top selected finalists, that's when we get into the most, deeper dives. That's the second tier of their background. Like, we even check their degree. Did they really get a doctoral level degree? If they have any criminal offenses. And this is something that the candidates pay for. when you get to the 3 that you really, really want. So we don't want any surprises. This is what we do, like it says motor vehicle record, like we go very deep with, and we say like final 3 on average, you may have 2, but that's when we do the even deeper dive on the candidate.
So just to give you kind of real life examples. So I also serve the firm as a report writer. So that's the person that's doing the reference checks, and we do a phone interview with the person, and literally do sit down. It's exactly what Karen said. Sit there, get on the computer, check Twitter, check Facebook, check.
Yeah, literally.
I recently did a report write for a cabinet level position in a large district, and I went to that state's criminal database and looked at numerous different criminal databases to determine were there any things that we should know about legally. I will tell you that a candidate did park on the wrong side of the street once. So, you know, it's in a large city. So
And we
I didn't hold it against him.
We could go, but we let you know. So for example, there have been news articles, for example, and there may have been some disputes with teacher unions, and it got ugly. And there's been a series of, reports on that. I mean, we let you all know because you know what your appetite is for controversy. So we say, okay, here's a blip. We consider that a blip. And of course, anything deeper than that, we would let you know because people check. And so we want to make sure you're aware because, again, you want to be able to be out in the world and say, X, I know, or what have you, however you want to engage with that. So we do let you know if something comes up.
So give you one potential red flag is within those phone interview questions that we ask, there is a specific question that alludes to what Karen said earlier, and that's the question of, are you okay with us contacting references that you did not list? If they are hesitant or say no, that's a red flag. Why are they hesitant? So, but we can look and say, okay, the assistant superintendent of the Jonesboro School District was listed, but maybe I'm going to reach out to the principal of Smith Middle School in the Jonesboro School District to say, hey, tell me about it. So we're willing to go that extra level, because you're always going to put people on your reference list that like you. I tell you that in the report I just did, one of the ones that was listed by the candidate never got back with me after 6 straight days of attendance. So then I put that in my report. I tell the lead person in search, one of these people never got back to me. I will let you know if they ever do, but that person never did. So that then search leader had that information to know at least there's some consternation that for whatever reason that person didn't get back, even though it was listed as a reference.
And we asked them, have they had any conflict or controversy? We've asked them if they've had any terminations. So it's not a fluffy interview. Like, we go there with them. And if we find out they haven't been truthful, of course, that's a red flag.
Got the next question. So describe the process you would recommend to the board of how we would interview candidates submitted by your firm.
Yeah, excellent. So we have a selection of interview questions. So this is also homework. So you go home and you review, and if there are any questions that you would like to remove from the bank of questions, or you would like to modify, we work on that together. Or to say we don't like this question at all, let's use this question. So we give you starter questions that are standard, that kind of help shape your mind around the questioning, like what's best for that first round when you have 6 candidates. And then, because you like speed dating, right? And so when you want to go down and whittle it to 3, you want to know more about them because you really like them. So you're trying to determine if this individual is the superintendent. So you may have more scenario-based questions for the finalists, not the semifinalists. So we have time in a meeting to talk about that. You have time to prep and have those questions for a while and sit on them and think about them, and you can give them to me. Because I've spent time trying to put things together along with the designee, the contact person from the board to customize the questions as much as you like. So that is our process.
And again, given our many, many, many years of experience as educators, we've interviewed tons of people as principals, as assistant principals, as superintendents in her role with Ray and Associates, so we're pretty skilled at knowing what effective interviews look like. So we'll give you our guidance, but again, as Karen said almost in the beginning, this is your search. You lead, we will guide you, but you lead us by saying, this is what we think, in our context of working as board members in Parkway and being Parkway parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, that what you would want the search to look like.
Next, and we've already touched on it, we will have primary responsibility for the search. Where is she or he based? Please describe qualifications for being assigned to our search.
So, say that again, I'm sorry.
Who will have the primary responsibility for the search? Where are they located, where are they based? Please describe the qualifications for being assigned to our search.
Okay, so the work chart for all of this. So I am in the field, and I'm your contact person, your individual who will be communicating with you and answering to any concerns, questions that you need. And then Greg is my colleague here. He can help with stakeholder groups. He'll fly in and be here as well, but I'm the immediate person. The president, who is located in Iowa, she oversees all of the searches, but especially this one, as I had mentioned earlier in my introductory remarks. And you will have interaction with her as well. So she's not just a figurehead. She will be hands-on, because it's what we do.
After 30 years of wandering in the desert, my wife and I returned to our native Nebraska, so I'm based in Omaha, but quick plane trip or drove in for this one, so easy to do. And other than working on my sorry golf game, this is what I'm doing in retirement, so readily available at a moment's notice to be here, even within the confines of the structure we lay out for the process, or if something comes up, like, hey, we really need to meet with you tomorrow. Okay, I'll be here.
Next question. What if the Board of Education has not found the ideal candidate during the first round of the search, and how often does this occur?
Not often, but if we have to reopen, we will.
The higher the quality of the district, the less likely that is to
Yeah.
happen. You're going to have a quality slate of candidates. I'm supremely confident of that.
Oh, sorry. How do you handle confidential information and ensure the privacy of candidates in the search process?
Yeah, 100%. So we keep the entire process confidential. There's no publishing of the names, because of course people don't necessarily want their school districts to know that they're looking until you have your finalists, and that's those 3 or 2 people. Typically, you don't have to, but school districts usually let the community know that they found finalists, and they're gonna have those interviews. Because of course, you have a very public process. You let everyone know that you're going through the superintendent search. So, yeah, we ensure, because that's important for us, because we don't want to expose any of our candidates. So that hurts our business if we have loose lips or anything like that. So we're very quiet about what's going on. We just don't talk about it. Everything is handled through our portal that we have on our website, so people can apply. And our associates also, we make sure that everyone is ensured that the confidentiality of our candidates is taken care of.
And that's as much your responsibility as ours. Because
Yeah.
we will ask you to sign a confidentiality agreement as board members, because it's very important. Now, how you do it every district is unique in how they want to do, especially the finalist part. Like, for example, when my successor was chosen, or when I was chosen, the final two candidates, their names were made public before that final round, and we actually did public meetings. We 1 hour of the day-long process was a community interview where people could submit questions, and we stood up on stage for an hour and answered those questions. So, but if you want to keep the entire process confidential
You can do that as
and
well.
leave it just to the board, that is more than your purview. Those are the types of things we would talk about in the initial meeting that I think that you're targeting for September 4th around there. So, again, your choice, and we'll give you the best guidance we can, but it is very important to
Confidentiality
keep-
is huge. And just to add more explanation briefly, there is the confidentiality, like sign, the signature that you have to do before you receive any of the information from the beginning. So we can't give it to you until you sign it.
Don't take any pictures with your phone.
Next, please just, we'll overlap here. Please describe a typical recommendation for how the superintendent candidates are to be interviewed and how many rounds are usually.
So typically there are 2 rounds. And 2 rounds with you interviewing. Now, there are boards that like to have a public-facing experience, like a town hall, or some school districts, especially larger school districts, they've had videotapes of the candidates. So someone is asking them questions and they're responding, and people can then engage by responding to a survey. So there is a level of customization that you can do if you're thinking about how you want the community to see the finalist, not the 10, that you will see, or then the 6 after that. So that's one level of engaging with the candidates, and want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so typically, districts usually choose with that kind of group of 6 to keep it just amongst the board and in closed session and confidential. Then, again, it's totally up to you what you think the community wants. Obviously, this is unique for Parkway. We haven't done this for 14 years, which is a great thing. So I'm guessing none of you were involved in the selection of Dr. Marty? So, thought I read miles close enough to know better. You've been on the board for 14 years of me. That's service, my guy. So an example of what, like, my search or the search for my successor, once we got down to the final 2, it was an all-day. I did interviews with 3 different groups that consisted of kids and parents and teachers and community members. I did another interview with the board, did an interview with the principals. We went to lunch, each candidate went to lunch with a couple of board members, and then there was this public, about an hour-long session where anyone from the community could come in, hand in questions on a note card, and then as many questions as could be asked was asked of the candidate in public, and then the public had the opportunity to provide feedback. So that's one that's much more out in the open, or larger districts, especially in Silas with Omaha Public Schools, and I think Des Moines may have done the same, where the second interview, the final interview, was still very formal with the board, but it was in public. It was, instead of a closed session, it was, hey, come one, come all, and was also live streamed. And so people could see the 3 candidates in person. So you've got tons of options.
Yes, you do. And I was just sitting thinking about when we were during the pandemic, we were, everyone was forced to do a lot of online things, but it was interesting how effective it was. It gave us a lot of flexibility when it came to stakeholder groups. We're able to do a hybrid format. So we say there's a lot of options, that is true, but we want to support you, and we can provide you based on what you're saying your community would like. we can provide you with some example schedules and what that would look like for you. So that's what I'm saying, it's your search, but we can give you some structure around this so it's not overwhelming, because that's our job, to distill it down so you can say, I want package A and D and E, right? And so it's the best fit for you and the community.
So whether you have 1, 100, or 1,000 people providing you feedback, whether it's through a survey, through a stakeholder group, maybe being part of the interview process, whatever you choose, no matter how much feedback you get, you make the final call. It's your decision. We don't. We're going to guide you, but yes. Well, who do you think? It's not our decision. It's yours.
What specific costs in addition to your fee should the Board of Education anticipate? What's the estimate of these costs? Will there be a cap?
Yes, there is, and it's in the bid.
I think it's not
It
just
says
the-
23, yeah, it's in here. There is a cap. I believe it is
It's
23,000.
24,000, not just the 34, but I guess the question is, what do you get for 24, and what do you get for 34, and what are the choices?
Yeah, so I believe it depends on the travel needs, typically is what eats it up. And also advertising, if you go beyond the recommended, and that is one area that the board president can negotiate with you all, but that can fill it up, but we typically don't go beyond that. If we look at the number of stakeholder groups we have, can also add to it. I mean, we've had spaces where they've had over 30 stakeholder groups, and that requires people, but we can get it done in 3 days, having them go concurrently, but that could also create your cost to go up.
So yeah, that's one of the, would you say that, one of the, well, I lost my train of thought on that, but we also do, in the cost proposal too, don't forget about the price match in there. So Green Associates will agree to match the price of any competitive bid so long as the bid is for a comparable level of services and support. So that is a key feature. The advertising thing real quick. That will be customized for what you think are the best resources you can use to get the word out. Whether you want to make sure that you are getting Parkway's name out there from sea to shining sea, whether you're more regionalized, localized. We're going to give you a lot of options, whether you're really looking for quality minority candidates. We will have this potential option for you for advertising. If you're looking to make sure that you're seen all across the United States, we'll have this option. Again, that's kind of a grocery list that you get, kind of a menu that you get to choose from, and then that can, if you choose, the Cadillac version and choose them all, which we probably wouldn't recommend, that would potentially bring your costs up. Versus if you say we want this, and this, and keep it close to that 24 number.
So what strengths or weaknesses can we anticipate learning of when we contact your references?
Well, our strengths, I would say, is our process and the attention that we receive, the relationships, embedding ourselves in the community and being very good listeners. And as a result of that, providing you with the individual that or individuals that you can consider. And really, we want to make it really hard for you to decide who you're going to pick. That's one of the things that we strive, that you just like, oh, we like them all, And so that is something that we have been consistent with trying to provide individuals with that opportunity. An area of growth for us, what do you think of area of growth for that?
I'm the new guy.
I know. I'm trying to think. That is a really good question, area of growth for us. We have the capacity to meet the needs. I guess for some We are, I would say like a boutique because we're smaller. And I think in some spaces they may think that is an area of weakness because we're smaller, but I also see that as a strength. And how we build relationships with candidates. But we are smaller. I mean, that would be something that, like, no, we want a really big group, a lot, larger capacity, more associates. But I feel that our size has been effective for us in meeting the needs of our boards across the country. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think you have quality firms that you've chosen to interview, and we're honored to be one of them. If you dig deep enough, you're going to find with all of those you've chosen where searches the end result hasn't been what the district had hoped for. And for whatever reason, no matter how hard Ray and Associates worked and the board worked and the district worked, for whatever reason, it just didn't click. And that's why, among other things, that especially if that situation blows up fairly quickly, if a person after 1 year exits the stage, we come back and do the search for free. That's how much we believe.
It's a 2-year guarantee.
2 year. That's how much we believe in our work. And we do, in this case, believe very much in our local knowledge and connections, maybe over, I don't know what local flavor the other firms have, but we think we can make up for size in our knowledge of the area.
So we are almost at the end of our time with you, but I'd just like to offer an opportunity for you to share anything else that you'd like to about your firm, about your process, about what you have to offer.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity. I mean, we are very grateful because we do admire and respect the work that you all have done for many years. And I've been with this firm for 4 years, and I believe in the process, and it's been an honor to be a part of this work and how we've helped boards across the country. I do want you to know that within the folder, there is an FAQ for what has been happening and questions swirling around SLPS. And I want us to be transparent with you because I don't want there to be any question or worry as you move forward. That is there for you, and then also if you have further questions. It's unfortunate and really sad about what's going on right now, but we have followed our process and we are happy to answer any questions. Haven't had a chance to be able to really talk about our side of it because we're vendors, we're in the middle, and that information is there. I do want to add that we're not hiding from that, but I do want to put our good work, the things that we have done and we have done very well in the forefront. But it is there because we're not here to hide.
Just think, our diversity of, we had a firm meeting last week to kick off the year, and just seeing the diversity of thought and diversity of experiences that the entire Ray Associates team has across the United States is really powerful. And we're all beholden to now work on behalf of Parkway have chosen to, in our own areas, look for people that we think meet the profile to serve you well. So we take that very seriously as our job to make sure that we scour the entire country to give you the absolute best slate of candidates we can. We're very proud of that. And I think it's great that we are a pretty diverse group. In fact, I think it's great that my 3 immediate supervisors are women. One African-American woman sitting to my left, and I think that's incredible. And it's not true possibly of every search firm, and I take great pride in working for the organization.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
Thank you for your
time.
service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome. Absolutely, join us here. You're welcome to stand if you want to present anything at any time. My name is Jeff Dott, I'm president of Education. Good to see you all. Thank you for being here. As you know, you were one of 3 firms selected for us to interview, final interview for us to hire a search firm ahead of or in conjunction with finding our next superintendent. So we appreciate you being here tonight. We want to provide you about 10 to 15 minutes to present to us your firm, yourselves, the process that you plan to use for a potential search. And then we have a number of questions that we'd like to ask. Some of those will probably overlap with some of the information that you plan to share with us tonight. And when we get to that portion, if there's something you've already answered in your presentation, you can certainly use that time to expand on that, or you can just pass to the next question. So, we're ready to go?
So first of all, good evening, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to be here tonight, and we are looking forward to the conversation with you tonight. Obviously, we are here on behalf of Hazard Young Teal and Associates. Obviously, as you indicated, we're one of 3 of the finalists that you are considering, and we want to spend a little time talking about our proposal and why we think we're the best choice for this particular search. The team is obviously myself, Calvin Adams, and we'll have an opportunity to introduce ourselves. Peter Flynn and Dr. Krishna Castro. The next couple of slides will give you a brief overview of the Hazard Young Teal Associates and tell you a little bit more about ourselves. Our company, and I'm trying to see the slide presentation. There you go, I'm sorry. Obviously, the company has been around since 1987, having been founded by Superintendents Bill Hazard, Charles Young, and Bill Teal. Our nationwide associates ensure we are actively recruiting the best talents. Some 1,600 searches have taken place, 135 associates. Each of our searches has an executive oversight. Our firm has professional staff full-time. We have a national reach from the East Coast to the West Coast, North and South as well. Our process includes a survey, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight, which is a research informed as well. And so at this time, I'd like to kind of give you a brief introduction of who we are. My name is Dr. Calvin Adams. I spent the last 14 years as superintendent of the St. Louis Public School District. Prior to that, I spent 29 years in New Orleans as a principal, chief of staff, and superintendent. I currently serve as the CEO and president of the St. Louis Community Foundation. Obviously, I'm doing this because I'm still passionate about the work that we do around education. So a total of about 45 years of public education experience. I'll now turn over to my left to Dr. Castro, who will do the same.
Hi, pleasure to be here this evening. I'm Kristen Castro. I spent most of my formal career in the St. Louis area in several school districts, most recently in North County and Hazelwood School District, where I was superintendent for 8 years. After that, I went to the State Department and I served as Commissioner of Education for 5.5 years. I left office about 5 years ago, and since then I've been doing some consulting work for the U.S. Department of Education, for various state departments around the country, and a number of school districts. My primary focus has been in strategic planning.
Good evening. We are honored to be with you and be one of 3 firms that you're talking to. I'm Peter Flynn. As you saw from my resume, I spent 34 years as a school superintendent in 4 different states. And since I retired in 2012, I wanted to work for Bill Attia because I believed in the way he operated as a superintendent and as a search firm. And so I went to work with him and have been doing that since 2012. I did serve as an interim superintendent a couple of times since I retired as well. I also wanted to tell you, in addition to the work that I've done as a superintendent and as a search firm consultant, I'm still a learner. I've got a lot to learn, and I realize that every day, every search that we do is experience for me. Every conference that I go, every lecture that I hear on education is a learning experience. I also want to tell you a tiny bit about who I am when I'm not doing my work. I'm a husband, and my wife and I have 2 children. They're both in education. My wife likewise was in education. She was an art teacher and a graphic designer. One daughter teaches in the North Chicago School District, elementary music teacher. The other teaches about 2 hours from here at the University of Missouri. She teaches in the health science department, and she and her husband also teaches there. They have 2 children who both are students at the University of Missouri. The first daughter that I mentioned has a son who's a junior this year at Evanston High School outside of Chicago. So I'm a father, a grandfather as well, and a learner. That's the most important.
You get points for grandkids at the zoo.
Yeah, thanks. Well, they're having a good experience. They have a good public school experience in Columbia as well, at Hickman, and yeah, so.
I'm a little jealous, I didn't plug my grandkids.
She's got 9 grandkids.
So a little bit about our search, signature search process. 4 phases of our overall process include the following, which you'll hear more about from Dr. Nicastro: engage, recruit, select, and obviously the last one in terms of transitioning the person into the new role.
Thank you. Are you going to advance these? Are you in charge
No,
of that?
ma'am, ladies in charge.
Which one are you doing? Bottom one, thank you. Good evening. In the engage phase, and that is probably the most important foundational work that we do with you and with your community. The first stage of that, the first piece of that, is developing the planning meeting, and that's when we would meet with you. Those meetings usually take about 2 hours, and it's during that time that we plan every step of the search. We consult with you about what documents you want us to be familiar with, obviously your strategic plan, other things like that. We consult with you about what groups you specifically want us to include in focus groups, and we'll discuss how those might be scheduled. We'll talk about all the other takeaways that need to be done during that planning session. The second step really is to solicit extensive board and stakeholder input. We would want to conduct personal interviews with each of you, as well as with Dr. Marty. And we would want to conduct focus groups with a number of groups throughout your community. It might be students, parents, business people, however you think is the best way to coordinate those groups and deploying those groups. That's what we'll be putting into our plan. The survey, we would then be conducting the survey. That goes out into the community. That too is widely disseminated through your website, through school newspaper sometimes, emails, up to you. You all know better than anyone how best to communicate with your constituents, both staff and external constituents. Well then, the listening sessions that we would conduct, and we do about 20 to 25 of those, would happen during a 2-week period, typically. We then take all that information, the information that we get from this survey, the community survey. As Kelvin mentioned, that survey is research-based. It's based on the best and most effective superintendent traits over a 25-year period. So our company is really known for doing that kind of solid research to make sure that our survey accurately reflects the best attributes of the superintendent. Finally, based on the information from all of that, we develop a leadership profile. And that leadership profile is what's used to direct the remainder of the search. It's how we draft our communications, it's how we draft our recruiting plan, it's how we make sure that the people we bring to you in the final analysis are people who match the characteristics that you think are the most important. The engage phase, and this schedule, this is a sample schedule. We do have copies of that. Again, this is just a sample. This is something that would be finalized during the planning session. We understand that you have a very ambitious timeline in mind. We think that's very smart. This is a very busy time for superintendent searches. And in fact, there are several districts in the area who are also in the market right now. I did notice that one of them had a timeline that is at least as ambitious as yours, and maybe a little bit more ambitious. But we think you're going to be well served by this kind of a timeline. It's going to be intensive, but it is doable. We've done searches before with this kind of timeline, so we're very confident that we can make that happen for you. The next stage really is these are the steps that we would be doing, the summary of the steps that I just talked about. You finalize the calendar, schedule the times. We would ask that you identify someone for us to work with so that we can schedule each of you for personal interviews, and then also to schedule the focus groups. One of the three of us would be conducting all those focus group sessions. Some, if they're quite large, we might have two of us working with that particular group. We can do those remotely, or we can do those in person. And again, it may depend on the group and what you believe to be the most appropriate way to get that information. I think it's important to emphasize something that Peter mentioned, and that is listening. Listening sessions have to be exactly that. I know all of you have been in sessions before, focus groups and so forth, where the person conducting the focus group did most of the talking. That's not how we choose to do our listening sessions. We really want to hear from the people that you decide we should listen to, because they're the ones who are going to give us the information we need to find you the right superintendent. The next stage is the recruiting phase, and I think that's where HYA really becomes quite important. We have a network of 130 associates around the country, so we have a very far reach. We can literally touch superintendents in every state in the union. We have connections with every major superintendent's organization, including AESA, AAFS, NASB. We have members who are members of the Century Club, if you know about that. We have members who are members of Suburban School Superintendents. I know that Dr. Marty is in fact a member of that organization. So all of the very best superintendents in the country are represented by our associates who are members of one or more of those organizations. We will review the applications, we'll conduct those screening interviews, and we will check references. We check both formal and informal or confidential references. In other words, we don't just check the references for those listed on their application. We make sure that we go much deeper than that and try to find people who can really attest to their performance. During the screening interview, we really vet candidates in three different ways. One, we ask them during the screening interview to explain how they do their work. Work that demonstrates experience in an area that you've identified as particularly important. For example, if you decide or tell us that one of your critical criteria is success in improving minority achievement, we would then ask the candidate to tell us about how they've done in that particular area and to let us know how they measured that. And the second piece of that would be to ask them to give us some trend line data so that we can see specific proof that they have in fact done that and made some incremental improvements in that area. That data would be attached to their application and would be available to you, of course, in the portal. The third piece is we talk to people who are familiar with their work, just to verify that they have in fact done the work that they've just told us about, and that there's some evidence that people are aware of that they were involved in that process.
If I could just mention that we're about at the 15-minute mark.
Okay.
So if you could wrap up your presentation.
I'm almost done.
That's fine.
Thank you. The last piece was the select phase, and that, of course, is where we come and work with you, facilitate the interview workshop, and then
time, I'll point out that the highlights are in the slide presentation in terms of the different ways we would communicate with you, for example. And then we mentioned some of the diversity backgrounds that we have as well. And then the all-important guarantees that we make, including our standing behind those people that get hired through this process. And if we have time when you ask questions, I'll move into some of these others. But we hope you've had an opportunity to talk to our references, and we hope that they said that we work hard, we meet their expectations. We also hope that you found out that we have had good experiences that might be appropriate to what you're looking for here at Parkway. So I'll cut it short at that point and listen to your questions.
Okay, great, thank you very much. As I mentioned before, we'll ask questions. If you already answered some of those, feel free to expand on it, or we can move on to the next one. I'll start with the first one. How would you describe the Parkway School District to a superintendent applicant?
Well, we can tell them the things that we've learned about your school district, and it's very good. That you do have a diverse student population, and you're achieving well with that population. We can also tell them about your strategic plan, which is exemplary in terms of the way it's put together, and the way it's intended to be used. But I think in addition to that, they're going to ask us, what's the board like? And that's when we're going to find out, when we do the one-on-one interviews with each board member. We're going to be able to talk to them about your abilities to communicate with people, the sincerity and integrity with which you conducted the search for superintendent, the extent to which you wanted community engagement in that process. We ask 5 questions when we do these listening sessions. We ask people, what are the strengths of the school district? And sometimes there are some surprises that come up and trend in those listening sessions, across listening sessions, that is very gratifying to the board. And that goes into the profile report that we put together, the 20-page report, because we summarize all those strengths. The second thing we ask, what are some of the challenges facing the district? Now, believe it or not, the challenges happen to be an attraction to outstanding superintendents. They like challenges. And the challenges also come with some information that we are able to gather in school districts about the experience of the school district, for example, in facing challenges in the past. Do they have a way of going about this work? Pardon?
No, I was just saying solving those problems.
Solving those problems, exactly, yeah. So then using the strengths and the challenges as a context, we ask for people to talk to us about what the characteristics of the next superintendent should be. So in answer to your question about what would we tell them about what the school district is like, we can tell them what we can see on your website. We can tell them more after we have conversations with people, good current information.
Yeah, I would just say, I think it's, for me at least, it's easy to describe Parkway. It's got a tremendous reputation within the area and within the state and nationally. It's a premier school district of good size, somewhat declining at this point, like most large suburban districts. When I was attending here, it was a very homogeneous population. We were all white. We were all pretty much middle class. There was probably not a whole lot of diversity of any kind in the school district, and that has changed significantly over time. Parkway is now a very rich and diverse community, diverse in every way, ethnically, racially, in terms of religion, and I think that too is something that would be very attractive to many superintendents. Parkway has also a long reputation for stability. Superintendents come here in a It's not unusual for them to stay a number of years, as Dr. Marty has. It's also not unusual for board members to stay on the board for a number of years. All of those are very positive signs of what keeps Parkway a premier school district.
The next question I will ask, what strategies are used to match candidates' qualifications, skills, and experiences to the superintendent profile that is developed?
And Chris talked a little bit about this. We use that process of asking people to describe their work. Can they articulate how they do their work? We listen carefully as to whether there are a lot of I statements or there are more we statements. In other words, do they acknowledge that there are strengths in teams, that they can get more viewpoints brought to solutions of problems that way. We ask them to talk about their work in terms of where they started and what kind of results they got. And then, as Chris mentioned, we ask them to literally give us graphs that would show an impact on children, improvement in terms of results, and upload that information as an attachment to their applications. That way, we have it available for board members to see if they make it to the level of being on the slate that's brought to the board, and they have something very concrete to talk about.
So, are you currently conducting a superintendent search for any other St. Louis area districts, and how are conflicts handled?
No, we are not.
We're not. That was in my closing remark, and it's on one of the slides.
We were very well aware of those, and they came out, as you know,
Around the
very
same
much
time.
at the same time, and we made a conscious decision not to do that. I think we believe as a team that that would be unethical for us to be trying to do searches in two districts so close to each other.
And we were intentional around this particular search because we felt that this was a search that we thought we could really identify a great candidate for. And obviously, my experience in the St. Louis region over the last 14 years, my relationship with Dr. Marty was a very good relationship, and I think highly of him. It was my intent to make sure that we could find someone that could succeed him and have the same kind of quality that I experienced in my 11 years working with him.
These are big shoes to fill. We're very well aware of that.
Yes.
Calvin and I both are very familiar with and know Dr. Marty very well, and think highly of him. So,
My experience has been, it's good for me to do one search at a time, so I can be focused. The other thing, as a firm, we don't double slate. So if somebody's on a slate for another school district, they won't be on the slate for this school district. And
at least not from our firm.
Right, yeah, we consciously make sure that doesn't happen.
All right. What methods do you use to assess a candidate's fit for the specific culture and the needs of our school district?
I think experience is really important. It would be very difficult, in my view, for somebody to come in to a district like Parkway from an area that was not similar in some ways. Parkway, again, premier school district, suburban district, so other kinds of experience, rural experience. Certainly there might be some aspects of that might be appropriate, but generally I think we would look for somebody with similar experience in a district that was somewhat like your district.
And we'll have that show up in a variety of ways too. It'll show up, for example, when it comes to identifying the profile. The profile is really a key element in the rest of the search because it gives you a framework within which to stay. It gives you, we've even used it as a basis for a rubric for interviews. We use it for the basis of questioning when we do screening interviews. We use the profile that you develop. And we ask you in that whole process, developing the characteristics, the traits, the attributes of your next superintendent, which are the priorities? If you had to choose, what would be the top 5, the ones that are most important to you? You must have these. It would be nice to have the next group, and maybe the 3 or 4 down the list aren't as important. But we'll ask you questions like that. We'll ask you to tell us which are the most important attributes, characteristics, techniques, administrative style kinds of things that are important to you as board members.
How do you verify the accuracy of the information provided by candidates, including educational and professional credentials, and what does a typical background check include?
Well, there are a couple of different answers to that. Well, I shouldn't say different. There are a couple of answers to it. First of all, as Chris mentioned, we have an extensive network of resources, people that know people, and they can verify whether or not if somebody came in and said, this is my trend line, and I led this, we can find out, not only from the references that are given to us by the candidate, but by members who are associates of ours who are familiar with this individual's work. Did this person actually lead that, or were they riding the crest of somebody else's wave when they came in as superintendent? So that's one piece of it that we can verify. And do you want to add to that?
I was just going to add that also there's the ability for the board to visit the district that the person might be coming from, so that you have a real good sense when you do the interview of knowing exactly what that person's strengths and weaknesses may be by being on site. If someone is coming from another district, that occurred with me when I was superintendent coming to St. Louis, and so board members would have that option to look to do that as well.
We strongly recommend the site visit.
Yes.
Without telling any war stories, we can tell you that it is a very valuable process.
Yes, part of the background.
Yes. Now, the second part is the third-party background check. We ask that that be done by a firm that's not HYA, but they have a contract, and technically the contract is with you. And what they do is they look at everything from credit references to media mentions, whether it's, pardon?
Police records.
Oh, yeah, they look at police records, of course. And they're really good at that. But they do extensive background checks of individuals and bring that information to you so that you have that. Now, some people choose to do that only on the final person, and others say, well, when you get down to 3, it would be good maybe to do it on all 3. So that's something to consider. But that's another important piece of information to get that third-party background check.
Next one. So describe the process that you would recommend the board use to interview candidates submitted by your firm.
And when we work with you during the recruiting stage, and when we get down to the point where we're presenting you a slate, at that point, we would work with you to develop a script for your interview, much like you're using this evening. And we would help you develop that script. And then we would also conduct an interview workshop for you, just to make sure that you're familiar with all the technical details and the legal issues surrounding interviews. Make sure you're all comfortable before you go into the interview process with those candidates.
And yeah, we actually get you to give us your questions. We have on that portal, we have a list of sample questions. Now, some of them are generic. However, there are questions that you will think of, or maybe you'll ask us to think of, questions having to do with certain characteristics that you want to ask questions about. And we can suggest questions to you that way as well. And as Chris said, once you give us those, we'll structure the interview script for you, then when we do that workshop, we'll go into a closed session, ask you to go into closed session so that you can talk about the script in closed session and make sure that it's okay with all of you and that you understand the way it's structured and so on. And so you'll have a chance to look at that. We also recommend that you go back to the profile and use the profile as a way to judge whether or not the candidates are performing up to what you said are the standards, are the characteristics and traits that you said in the profile are important to you in the district.
We kind of touched on this a little bit, but who will have the primary responsibility for the search? Where are they located? And then please describe your qualifications for being assigned to our specific search.
It's the three of us. The three of us will all be working with you and we'll be here. We're at your disposal. You'll have our cell phone numbers. You can text us, you can email us, you can call us. We will ask, as part of the planning meeting, that you establish a liaison.
Yes.
You may have already have done that, and typically it's the board president, but it doesn't have to be. I've worked with a district where they actually hired an outside person to be a liaison. So, but it's important that there be a liaison who is a spokesperson for the board, or at least an intermediary for the board, and so that individual can say, okay, this is something that the whole board needs to talk about, or I think I know where the board is on this and it's here, and so move in that direction. So, but
Two of us are local, so it would be very easy for us to be accessible.
I'm a couple hours away. I live in Freeport, Illinois, but we have what my wife affectionately calls a getaway place in Galesburg, Illinois, which isn't quite as far away. It only takes about 3.5 hours to get there, 5.5 hours. But with with all the availability of media, we can be here literally in an instant.
Okay, next question. What if the Board of Education has not found the ideal candidate during the first round of the search? How often does this occur?
It happens, but I think the more vigor with which we carry out the first part of the search and the engaged part with the development of the profile, and then understand what that means, the more chance of success. But the answer to your question directly is that we're with you until you find the right candidate. So it requires a second round. If you say, okay, you brought us 5 or 6 people and we went through this and we asked them all the questions that we had and we just don't feel as a group that the person is there, we'll back up and say, okay, how can it be different and better? What is it that you didn't see in these candidates that you wanted to see? What were your expectations? Now, it may be something that's not in the profile, and that calls for discussion of the board, because that needs to be added to the profile, right?
Yeah, and in this case, I think we would want to talk to Keith, and we will be interviewing Keith. And he's going to know as well as anyone, okay, Keith, all the normal things aside, what are the things that you think are important for a person, a very highly qualified person to come in here and work successfully with this board and this community? He's going to be able to give us a lot of insight about that.
He's just gonna want somebody from Wisconsin.
He's what?
I said he's just gonna want somebody from Wisconsin.
From Wisconsin, oh, okay.
I didn't hear you say.
Somebody from Wisconsin, he's from Wisconsin.
Oh.
So,
I'm not sure, it's been so long, he probably doesn't even remember he's been from Wisconsin.
Oh, sorry. Goodness. How do you handle confidential information and ensure the privacy of candidates and the search process?
That is a critical question, and I think what should be noted here is this is a really competitive environment right now for persons who are interested in the superintendency. So I think it's critical and important that those persons who might be applying for the superintendent's position understand, especially if they're sitting superintendents, that confidentiality is critical and important. And so we handle that well in terms of not making sure that if a person doesn't want their name out in the public, we don't put their name in the public, and the board also has to have that same level of commitment, because we'll have people who are already sitting in jobs who will apply for this position if they understand that confidentiality is part of that agreement. If it's not part of the agreement, it reduces the number of persons who might be high-quality candidates to come before you. So that's a critical piece for us, and we honor that, and we ask that the board do the same thing as it relates to those kind of candidates. Secondly, another piece I think that's critical as it relates to the confidentiality piece, the notion of why superintendents are willing to take chances in other places, quite frankly, is how they feel the board will support them in the work that they're doing. So the confidentiality piece, and also with the board in terms of when those conversations take place with the board, there has to be a belief that the board is going to be confidential relative to the conversations they're having with them.
And we'll ask you that question in the planning. Confidential search, not a confidential search. And so that you have a public discussion about that. And we can tell you that of all the searches done, and my experiences with, and I have vast experience, I've done about 20 plus searches. And, but when I talk with colleagues, they say the same thing, that 8 or 9 out of 10 superintendents that are hired did not originally apply for the job. They were recruited. They were recruited because their skill set met the profile of the board. They applied because they saw an opportunity to work with the board. They saw an opportunity to work with the challenges in the district. And that's why they were recruited. And so, that being the case, come back to what Kelvin said, and that is, do you want to risk hurting the feelings of the people that you're working with by letting it be known that you're looking around at another job? No, you're being selective, and you've been recruited to look at a specific job. And that works better for superintendents who might be a good fit for the profile that you develop.
All right, a little overlap here, but can you describe your typical recommendation for how the superintendent candidates are to be interviewed? How many rounds would there be?
Okay, well, this is customizable. Here's what we typically do. We usually look at who seems to be on paper a good fit. And then we have conversations with them. And then we come back together as a team and say, here are the dozen or so people that we ought to talk to. And we ask them questions, as we said earlier, based upon the profile. And so we screen them. And then based upon the evidence that they've presented, both verbally and in writing, we make a decision whether or not to bring them to you, and we make that decision as a team, usually unanimously. It's unusual for us to bring forward somebody that doesn't have everybody on the team in agreement. We prefer to operate that way. And then we bring them to you, and we recommend that you have first round with that group of candidates, and you decide the size of the group. Typically 5 or 6 is good. After that, you get a little misty, shall I say, or they get a little cloudy, in that you might mix up who said what. But we like to keep the group about that size. And then we suggest that you go no smaller than 3. And the reason for that is in case one drops out, then you don't have as much of a choice. And so that we recommend that you go to 3 people. So that's the second round. And then if you want to consider the site visit as a third round, done those virtually and in person.
To clarify,
Yes.
when you get it, when you trim it, when it's trimmed from the 10 or 12 to the 5 or 6 we interview the first round, you guys are the ones trimming it, is that correct?
We do, but we tell you who we talked to, and we tell you how we got to the numbers we got and why. We don't just say, here's 5 people. We tell you, here's what we started with, and then here's how we narrowed it down, and then here's how we got to these. And we've had instances where the board has said, you know, we like these 6, but we want to interview number 7. And in one instance, number 7 got hired. So we always defer back to the board. And that's why we tell you all the steps that we take, and we tell you who the people are in terms of what they've done and why we may be having some, not second thoughts, but some hesitancies about bringing somebody forward.
It's one reason why we want to interview all of you. We need to know you all. We need to know what you are looking for, what each of you is really interested in. I mean, we've done a little bit of research already about you. We know, from board minutes and things, some of the questions that you ask and the things you might be interested in. Which of you is interested in support staff salary increases, and which of you is interested in, so we do that too, but that, it's important that we know you enough that we can find somebody that's gonna meet your needs, that's gonna do the kinds of things that you're interested in seeing done. Plus, it's fun. We like to do, I love to do those.
Oh, my. What specific costs in addition to your fee should the Board of Education anticipate, and what is the estimate of those costs, and will there be a cap?
Well, I don't know any other costs. Your process was very thorough. Of all the searches that I've done before, I've never put in that extensive proposal. It was, and
The breakdown of the costs,
the breakdown of the cost is unusual. We usually put in a flat fee and say, you take it out of here, and we work with that. But, so I don't know any other costs that we didn't mention in the proposal. That's number one. Number two, I don't anticipate anything unless you come up with some other things that you wanted to do. For example, sometimes boards will choose to bring in the candidates in the second round and their spouses or significant others. There's a little bit of an expense involved in something like that. We did not anticipate that, and we did not build that into.
Yeah, part of the planning meeting will be for you to tell us, are you going to pay travel expenses, for example, for your candidates when they come in town? Are you going to pay expenses for travel for spouses? That's not part of our fee. So those kinds of expenses that are to be determined by you would be additional.
Yeah. And we are, and so we're not going to do anything like that without talking with you first. And those ideas, we might say, some people are doing this, and it's up to you whether you want to do it, and we'll advise you of that, but we're not going to make any decision like that.
So what strengths or weaknesses can we anticipate learning when we contact your references?
Our references?
Yes, yours.
Yeah. Well, it's easier to talk about the strengths. I think that they'll tell you, generally speaking, that we tend to under-promise and over-deliver. That we tend to be on time with our commitments. portal, I didn't talk a whole lot about the portal, but the portal is going to have every document that's created in the search process is going to be in that portal. So that you can go back and reflect on that using just about any kind of instrument that you use. So I think we get pretty good marks in communications.
I think HYA, as a firm, has a few advantages. One, we have an extensive back office. A lot of search firms don't have that behind them. So we have office staff behind us who handle things like the details of, for securing background check companies, or one district was in the process of developing a profile of a graduate. The back office was able to help us secure some individuals with those kind of skills. So if you add additional things to the scope of the search, aside from what you might see in a normal search or something that just comes up you think you need help with. Oh, for example, if you want to do surveys in multiple languages, we have the ability to offer that as an option. Same thing with, I've conducted focus groups with 3 languages simultaneously. Now, obviously there were interpreters because I don't speak Bosnian and I don't speak Farsi. However, we have the ability to get assistance with those kinds of things. So I think the back office is really important. And the second point is research. Everything we do is research-based. And it's based on years and years and years of studies and very formally done research studies that really document the integrity of whatever it is that we're doing.
And our survey is a good example of that. We left what we call a white paper that's based upon 25 years of research of effective superintendents. They were looked at, all the studies on effective superintendents for a 25-year period was looked at, and they used that to pull out the characteristics of effective superintendents. And so when people take our survey, there are 12 characteristics listed in that survey, and that's where they came from. They came from that research. And people get very frustrated with our survey because they can only pick 4. And we say, well, pick the 4 that are most important to your school district at this point in its history. And but it's that kind of thoroughness that Chris is talking about that's an advantage to the way we go about conducting our work.
We are getting right down to the end of our time that we've allocated. So I'll ask one final question, and that is simply, is there anything else that you would like to share with us about yourselves, about the process, about your firm, what you have to offer?
I'll just speak for myself. I'm just really excited to think that I might be working with all of you. I think I have a love for the St. Louis area and a love for our state, in spite of the fact that I was in state office for those years. I still feel that. And so for me, it's home. So I feel a very personal connection, a personal responsibility to work with you all and help you find a good superintendent.
I'm going to ditto what Dr. Cashel said. I think the commitment to the region is critically important. I think Parkway is a real light to the region, well respected from a superintendent's perspective. I think it's diverse in the sense that it is committed to diversity. My experience as a former superintendent working with Parkway around the VIC program was a critical component for me. And having a partner in Parkway, not necessarily just Key Marty, but this notion of Parkway being a partner in that work was critical and important. And I would like to see the next leader for this district have the same kind of commitment to diversity that was there before.
And I've known both of these people for quite some time, and although my connection is a little bit remote down the road a bit, but I do believe in finding good superintendents for leading good school districts and helping more children to learn and children to learn more, which is what it's all about. alongside of you and share with you what we've learned from other searches, what we've learned from other processes, and what we've learned from successful searches for superintendents of school districts similar to yours. Not exactly like yours, because every search is unique, and yours is not an exception to that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the